Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Intentional Living Podcast. This is our last podcast for the year 2026, just before Christmas. And I'd like to welcome John Donovan, my
Hey,
friend and master down in Oceanside, California. I'm Marty Keller here in Sacramento. The Intentional Living Podcast, for the last 5.5 years, John, we've been taking a look at dealing with breaking patterns of behavior that occur when I say I don't want to do something and I feel compelled to do it anyway. That similar seeming disconnect between my conscious thoughts and the compulsions in my body.
right.
And it often could take the form of the great example you like to use. What have you ever found yourself in the middle of a argument and realized that you were wrong and you continued to argue the point you were
Yeah.
making anyway? Um,
Yep.
so it can be, we feel compelled to do something that our mind is telling us don't do it, or it can be the opposite. We can feel compelled to not do something that our mind says we should be doing. And
Yeah.
so there's a for until we find a way to break the code, as it were, we just often find ourselves following these compulsions that seem like strangers. It's like something inside of us that's not us is compelling us to do things. So um, we look to demystify this and in this podcast, and not only to demystify it, but to find ways to create something much more powerful and much more freeing and much more compatible with the what our hearts desire. So
Well,
that's what we call the intentional living process here. And what you and I have been doing for the past few podcasts, John, is reviewing a series of principles that we have. We call these things the accountability practice principles. And these are just ways to help understand what it is that, first of all, how does our body work? How do our body and mind work together? How does this compulsion happen? And how do we free ourselves from it? And I'm going to put those principles up on the screen so that all of the folks who are watching us can review them with us.
mhm.
And as soon as the Zoom share screen decides to show up, so these are the principles, and there's a podcast on all the ones that I'm going to go through. So for those of you who are interested in finding out some of the commentary that we have on each of these principles, just continue to look through the list of titles on the Intentional Living YouTube page. I'm always getting what I want. It's never about the other person. The issue is not the issue. People treat me the way I want them to. The quality of my life is determined by the focus of my attention. Life happens for me, not to me. What I resist persists. Hurt people hurt people. And last week we looked at these two. The world outside me is but a reflection of the world inside me, and its corollary, life is lived from the inside out. And today we're going to take on the next one. It says, it doesn't have to make sense. Well, that doesn't make any sense. What does that mean to you, John? It doesn't have to make sense as a principle here for our accountability work.
Um, if somebody comes to me looking for relief or a way out of a compulsion, and I'm speaking specifically in my outpatient facilitating, they want to be sober. Well, if I start telling them things that make sense, they already know it. And what they know, what they put together, got them to come in there and ask for help. So I say things out of their frame of reference that I know doesn't make sense to somebody looking to be fixed or given the solution. How do I stay sober? All I got to do is what? Put I lock the booze in a case. I don't know. They're looking for a solution, and whatever how they see that solution is part of what keeps them stuck in the pattern of drinking. So I'll say something to somebody, and one guy actually in in the jail spoke up and said, "John, cut this psychobabble bullshit. Just tell me what to do." I said, well, if I did that, I would be part of your problem. Because how many people have told you what to do, and you still find yourself here? So I'm not gonna be there. I'm gonna say things to you that make no sense whatsoever. So hopefully you get curious and lean forward and maybe ask me a question about that. And then we can talk about things that are out of your frame of reference that would enable you to sustain and maintain your sobriety.
Yeah. So that,
And then well, at that point, I would wait for them to respond, or I'd say something else that didn't make sense. Like I'd use one of these principles, and besides, the issue is never the issue. So you thinking that alcohol is the issue, it's not really the issue. And they go, what are you talking about? It doesn't make any sense. Oh, good. Hey, I'm earning my money. They get frustrated with that, or they laugh, or they see the benefit of it.
yeah, well, I was going to say that this is really illustrates what we talked about last week. The world is lived from the inside out. So it
Yeah.
doesn't have to make sense, or it doesn't have to make sense to whom
Right.
is the question. So what I'm hearing you say is, and of course I've had this experience with you, is that you'll say something to someone who is seeing the world a particular way through the framework of his or her own consciousness.
Yep.
And so you say something that doesn't fit into that framework.
Correct.
And so it doesn't make sense. Like one of my favorite ones that we've already talked about is that people often have a hard time with is people treat me the way I want them to. Well,
yeah.
That doesn't make sense. How can I do that? How can I make you treat me the way I want you to? What does that even mean?
Yeah. Well, and I would, at that point, I would say, I'm glad you asked.
Exactly.
Now we're going to have a conversation about that, what that looks like and how that works, and the hidden mechanism inside you that turns everything into what you know to be true. Because if it was out of your frame of reference, then guess what? You would be the stupid one, and you're not going to be the stupid one. You're going to be the one that is right or on the right side, depending on what the issue is. It could be you're the one that's going to be the victim if you're a victim mentality. The reality of the child becomes the belief of the adult. So if the reality of the child was that they were victimized, and that's the reality of a child in a dysfunctional home, they are a victim. They're the definition of victim. But when you grow up, you're no longer a victim. You participate in victimhood because you believe you're, and that was your reality. So now you believe it, and everything that outside of you use as evidence to prove, see, they just victimized me, they just did it again. That person doesn't even know me, and he's treating me like shit. It's like, oh my god, that's frustrating. It's like, oh my god. So, and then I offer information. One of the things I tell them, especially in the treatment center, drug and alcohol treatment center, and we deal with some mental health too. The people come in there for sobriety. Here's something that doesn't make sense, and this is what I tell them every time I ask them what they want. What do you want that you don't have? And then somebody will say, "Well, I want to be sober." And I go, "You want my idea interpretation of sobriety?" They go, "Yeah." Hey, sobriety sucks. And they'll get this big grin on their face. And they didn't expect me to say sobriety sucks. They expect me to like tout sobriety and look at all the stuff you're going to get when you're in sobriety. You have money. No, sobriety sucks. Because if sobriety, I mean, this is the truth. If sobriety didn't suck, you wouldn't have picked up in the first place because you'd have been okay and because you were sober before you picked up the first time. So what about that sobriety that was untenable, number one? And what do you need internal? What characteristics can you embody to assist you to maintain and sustain sobriety? Because who said life is suffering? Buddha. Life is difficult. not Eckhart Tolle, the guy that
Scott Peck.
wrote Scott Peck. Life is difficult. That's the first opening line in his book. So, okay, life is difficult. Okay, now how do we address this difficulty and maintain our sobriety? Because there's times I don't want to do this shit. I'd rather go do something else. That reasonably so. It's reasonable to be frustrated at what life brings you. Okay, the way I used to handle it was drink, cuss, yell, scream, go to work, um, avoid that difficulty. Now I've gained the characteristics like integrity. I intend to be integrous. I intend to be gracious. I intend to be kind. Those qualities that enable me to face life as it's coming to me. And life is tough. Sometimes it gets real tough. And advocate for myself. And one of the intents I created is I intend to know that I am my first priority. Ooh, tell that to a codependent. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. No, that's it. You're codependent because you're not your first priority. Everybody else is a priority. And guess where you learn that? In your childhood. Your parents needed to be. That was the reality. They needed to be the priority for you to survive that mess. So now that reality, that truth, that was absolute truth, became your belief, and it's no longer true. But you believe it to be true.
That reminds me of one that we use in many of our meetings, which is I intend to love myself more than any other person on the planet.
Yes.
Well, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. People go, wow, that's selfish.
That makes me an arrogant egomaniac.
Yeah, there you go. So what I want you to do is be absolutely, unequivocally selfish. Let's do it. Let's go all the way and see if what you think is there, like the arrogance and the bad, and is really there, because it's not. If you're first, that means you can offer to others, really offer, not give yourself up, give them everything about you to feel valuable about yourself. You feel the value in yourself and offer that to them, which is interdependency, cooperation, community, bringing something to the community that has value. So yeah, that's
well. Again, I like the way these things are all interconnected. So for me, what you just said circles me back to what we say at the beginning of this podcast is we're dealing with compulsions. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing: if love is compelled, it isn't love.
Correct.
And whether those compulsions are external and conscious or internal and subconscious, they're still compulsions. And so if I do not know how to love myself, and let's just say love starts out as unconditional acceptance. I accept myself just the way I am. That's love. Let's not even worry about all the funner parts of it. Let's just start there. I accept myself the way I am. I call that an act of unconditional love.
Okay.
Once I do that, then I'm free to accept everyone else just the way they are.
Right. Yep.
Because I've eliminated the inner compulsion. Life is lived from the inside out. So if my inside is freed from compulsion, so my outside will be free from compulsion.
Exactly. Live life from the inside out. There's a good example of that.
Well, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. At first, it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
One of the ones that I received when I went to my violence intervention class, they did agreements. Like I agreed that I'm going to be violent free this week. And of course, we make it agreements because not too many men in those classes, especially at the beginning, make it a whole 7 days without being emotionally, verbally, or sometimes physically violent. So we make the agreement so that we come back next week, we can remake our agreement. It's not like we broke our word or we're stupid or can't do it. We see it as a process.
You're a sinner.
I'm a sinner now. Okay, so the agreement was I agree to disclose 100% of what I need, 100% of the time, with no expectation of getting it. And when I heard that, I thought, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why would you ask for something if you didn't expect to get it? It just had no place in here whatsoever. Oh, and guess what? I agree to disclose 100% of what I need, 100% of the time, with no expectation of getting it. And I found that simply asking, being proactive, is what I need for my own validation. Whether that person chooses or not chooses simply gives me information about them. That's all. And it's not about right or wrong or did they give it to me or they're bad. I could ask for something that I need, and the other person says, you know what? Right now I haven't got time for that, and I have to like attend to, which is healthy for them. And then I get to like, okay, because that's how you interact in a relationship, and you're interdependent instead of codependent or counterdependent. I could receive a no and still feel okay about it because I asked for it. But see, when I first heard that, I had no, I didn't have that experience, so it made absolutely no sense whatsoever, 0 sense.
You know,
Go ahead.
uh, listening to what you're just saying raised the question in my mind, and I think we can shed some light on this. Was so, how do I know when something does make sense? So
Based on result.
I know when something doesn't make sense because it's like, you know, we've been talking about that. We've been hearing different statements that we make in accountability practice, and we kind of make fun. It's like that doesn't make any sense. So the question for me then is, how do we know when something is making sense? And what prompted me to ask that question, John, is because how many times have I had the experience, or you've had the experience, and I've shared this on this podcast before, when I first had my first breakthrough in accountability work was when I was willing to own that I liked being in debt. Well,
Yeah.
the statement, I like being in debt, did not make any sense to my conscious mind. And it
No.
didn't make any sense to the framework that I had created up until that time.
Correct.
Because if it had made sense, I wouldn't have been in debt.
Right.
Like you were saying about sobriety. So what I knew when there was a part of me though that felt something that was resonating as truth in my
Yeah.
body. There was an aha, and I can't exactly explicitly say where that came from, but at the same moment that I was having a conscious rebellion against saying it, I was also having this inner aha. Was it like I think you've described this before, and tell me if it's relevant here, like a relaxation.
Yes. Exactly. A sloughing,
Yeah.
a release,
Yeah.
a softening. Yes. Yes. And the statement is completely irrational. I believe the statement was, "I love being in debt."
Right.
It's like, are you kidding me? That's asinine. Oh, it's not. It's not to that wounded little boy. Whatever he saw that made him be valuable, like striving, working hard, and making sure oh, that you have. If you got a lot of money, then you're like an evil person. All that stuff is in there. So yes, the end result would be you love being in debt because it shows you have integrity and you're not evil and you're. But these were all hidden. I don't know, hidden from you, and you. Oh, and the key thing about these statements is I want to bring it to we create an intent. We don't just leave it there and
Right.
we go. And I believe your intent was I intend to live in abundance, or
Right.
I intend to know I'm.
I
But
intend
I'm
to
not
be
sure what it was.
prosperous.
Yeah. Okay. I intend to be prosperous. Okay. So that intent goes into that morass of perceptions that you gained through your childhood and produces for you the result of prosperity. Now, are you a
That doesn't
millionaire?
make sense.
I don't know. I haven't asked you lately. Are you a millionaire yet? But see, but the thing is, you're free of debt. You're
Well, remember we said the issue's not the issue. It turned out it wasn't about the money.
it wasn't about the money. No, no, it was about unresolved childhood.
Well,
Here's one thing.
it was about believing I had no value.
Correct. Yes.
And that, so
Yeah.
being in debt was proof.
There you go. There you go. So now that's we named it, healed it, or another way to say it is validated the feeling tone, the
Exactly.
frequency, resonated in that resonance. I intend to be prosperous. Yes, just like your perception of money and debt and value said yes, and then you went up and down into out of, because that's what you believe to be a virtue, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's true. And that's again, it didn't make sense. Um, and I remember sitting there on the couch and having that part of my mind going, this doesn't make any sense.
No.
And like I said, at the same time, feeling a resonance, a sloughing, a relief. It's like a door was opened.
Yeah.
A door was open. It was open wide.
Yes.
And again, I didn't have that thought, a door is open, but that was the experience that I was having. Even as I was also having the experience, this doesn't make any sense.
Correct. After the experience, this now makes sense.
There you go.
Okay. So here's, I don't know if we're going to get in or we've already talked about it, but the need to understand these Conan's statements is a block to embodying the concepts of these statements and the experience and the freedom that these statements bring you. So if you need to understand what I'm saying before you trust me to go take it to the tree, you didn't take it to the tree and you're still stuck. Oh my God, John, you're no good. You haven't helped me with this debt problem. And I don't know what you're going to do. Is you stay stuck.
Well, it's a truth of all of the great mystical traditions, both East and West, that you cannot think your way to God. You cannot think your way to transcendence. You cannot think your way to enlightenment, that the mind is limited. That's why there are koans, because the koan is designed to get you to see your mind can't solve everything.
Right.
So, what's the sound of one hand clapping? Well, you sit there and your mind is trying to create a rational picture of one hand clapping and does all this kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, well, would you be willing to consider that's a waste of your time? And
Well,
so,
actually, I know the answer to that koan.
well, I do too. But my
Oh
point
yeah.
is, I only know the answer because I learned that the answer is not the answer.
Correct.
And that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, right. Oh, we got to add that. We got to add that one. The answer is not really the answer.
Yeah.
Um, the answer to your question clearly is a dead end. And I
Right.
add that one.
Yeah.
Because
So I was
whatever. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that that doesn't have to make sense is actually applicable to all of life. Life doesn't make sense.
No.
If
No.
why are you here? You're just going to die.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What the heck? What's up with that? Okay.
Yeah.
And we have experiences of that. Let me say, I have experience of that to where I'm willing to go headfirst into my life, the rest of my life. I'm willing to jump feet first, head first. Let's go. I don't know. Let's see what happens. I got more to learn. I don't know. Let's do this.
One of the principles that we're going to take on after we finish this one next year is trust the body. And I think that trust the body is related to it doesn't have to make sense. In other words, it doesn't have to make sense is a certain kind of way of saying don't trust the mind.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
So how do you, I guess it goes to my question I asked you earlier, like how do we know when it makes sense? And my response was there's a feeling tone, which is physical, not mental.
Yeah.
And yet the mind recognizes the feeling tone. The mind basically, it's almost like that's the way we create a partnership in that moment between mind and body.
In a feeling tone.
The mind goes, okay, yes.
Okay. Here's an example of something that didn't make any sense to me when I first heard it. Nikola Tesla. To understand the universe, energy, frequency, vibration. I'm thinking, what the hell is that? Are you kidding me? Come on. Now, the way I understand the universe, which is as above, so below. So the way I understand myself is energy, frequency, vibration in the feeling tone in my body. Holy cow. Wow. It makes perfect sense to me now. What's the result of that? When something discordant happens and I breathe because my breath means my attention is on my body and sit there and find myself in this dynamic flow saying things that I didn't think about. It's like in this conversation with you, I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say. We set the tone for the conversation. I'm in the flow of this conversation. And when I stop this flow, I listen to you and I'm not thinking, I'm hearing you. And then I move into another flow of dialogue and what comes out of me. It's like I have no idea what I'm going to say next. When I think I have an idea what I'm going to say next, or if a insight came to me, I'll make a note or I'll hold my hand like I got to remember this. Talk about feeling. Other than that, I'm not engaged in a rational place. I'm in this dynamic flow, freedom expression with the intent to offer information that will offer other people listening to this a way out or a way through or to some relief or peace. Yes.
Uh, we're coming to the close of our time together. I want to close out by reminding you of something that you said. Don't you like that? Um, that didn't make sense to me at the level of conscious thought, but it made sense to me at the level of intuitive hit,
Yeah.
which is when you one day you said, "I intend to revel in my character defects."
Yeah. Yeah.
So much of what we do here comes from we have these flashes of insight. We have these because we're open to the fact that information doesn't necessarily just have to come through our mental aperture.
Right.
It can come through the body, and then wherever intuition comes from, I'm still not 100% clear as to what's the apparatus of that, and yet it happens.
Yes.
And so when I heard you say, I intend to revel in my character defects, I could only apprehend that as an intuitive hit. And I think when you said that, it was like you were just talking about. It wasn't something you thought about ahead of time. It just showed up.
Yes.
Well, that doesn't make
Yep.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully people stay around long enough. And what the thing I'm saying now is that when I find a character defect, I found a place of healing. So I get excited about that. Now, in the character defect, calling somebody an idiot on the road, that's rude. That's just, but once I notice it, I get excited because, oh my God, I'm going to take it to the tree. There's something in me that is still qualifying and nagging me as I'm an idiot. So I'll own the projection of I'm an idiot. I'm that. In fact, I'm not any idiot. I'm that idiot, which I had some issue with. I'm that idiot. And I go, oh, there's this frequency relief. And I go, yeah, that was controlling and arrogant. I intend to be kind and I intend to be a defensive driver. And then I look back out there and there's this poor guy sitting in the middle of the intersection because he wants to get into a lane that's whatever was going on with him. And I can have a bit of compassion and like, I'm not really in that big a hurry. I see that guy's like going to get in that lane no matter what. Okay, fine. No big deal.
Beautiful. Well, my friend, we've come to the end of our time together. I appreciate this. I asked the viewer, think about things that don't make sense to you in your recovery, and let us know. Let us know some of your experiences about dealing with it doesn't have to make sense, and just leave a comment on the YouTube page. And for those of you who are new to this process, you'd like to know more about the nuts and bolts of the intentional living process, how it actually starts. Come to a meeting. We have 4 meetings a week. They're all on Zoom, and the times, dates, and Zoom room addresses will be at the end of the podcast. So feel free to check those out and come and ask questions. And
Okay.
so with that, John, you have the last word
Actually, I have a plug.
and the
I
plug.
and okay. I started a Substack thing. It's called the Healing Power of Poetry. It's on Substack. And I write down right now. I'm in the early part of my recovery, the poems that I created early in my recovery, and I speak about how my process of recovery. So if you're interested, the Healing Power of Poetry on Substack. Um, and I'm, I am grateful for being open, having this information around healing, so that it's like I'm blessed. I feel blessed having put this together a way that maybe not at first makes sense to other people, but they can see the value in introspection, accountability, learning about unresolved subconscious trauma, complex post-traumatic stress. I feel blessed. So thank you, Marty.
Amen. And my friends, it doesn't have to make sense. It's not just intentional living. I know that when you get into a 12-step meeting, and the first thing is, I'm powerless over my drinking. That doesn't make any sense. I can stop anytime I want. So, this is
Yeah,
just human. And
yeah,
there's a lot deep. There's a deeper sense that we can make when we discover this process and discover the incredible energy that we have inside our bodies and our minds. So with that, my friend, thank you very much. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next year.
thank
Take
you, Marty.
care.